Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks. Are you serious? We're back and better than ever after a little sabbatical last week, as we had a death in our family, which we're still working through. But we're back and better than ever. We had the college football huddle on Wednesday, which will air tomorrow, by the way, on Roku. We air tomorrow at 9 a.m. We're live right now on TGI Sports Talks Facebook page on YouTube. We're also live on Roku, as you probably know by now, and live on Twitter, where you can also view the show and comment. We're on the LTS, Let's Talk Sports, on their YouTube channel, and Northeast Streaming Sports. Besides the Roku, we're also on their Facebook and YouTube stream. So you can catch us in lots of places, and this show will be available to watch later on as well. So we welcome everybody. Quick shout out to Ralph Williams over there at RW Media. Specifically the Sports Corner they does with Smoke and Jim Frazier every Tuesday at 5 o'clock Eastern on WBVP 1230 AM 99.3 FM in Pittsburgh. I was supposed to appear with them on Tuesday, and again, my sincerest apologies to Ralph, as I did not. It totally slipped my mind with everything going on, and I didn't get to his producer until late Tuesday, so I was not on, and I do apologize. The Mad New Yorker will join me in a second, and thumbs up, DDH. And thanks for looking over us. The Mad New Yorker will join me in just a few minutes. We're going to get into the semifinals, some thoughts on the semifinal games in college football. We'll talk about the final. We'll talk about Harbaugh's future. Maybe get into the opt-outs again a little bit. We'll talk NFL MVP. Is Lamar Jackson a foregone conclusion? Is there a great team, by the way? Anunoby trade with the Knicks. I love it. I'm a big RJ Barrett fan, but I love this trade. I think it makes the Knicks much better defensively, and we'll talk about that, and possibly even talk a little bit about Aaron Rodgers and Jimmy Kimmel. Do we care? But Aaron Rodgers, if I'm the Jets, they got to shut Aaron Rodgers up, I'm telling you. Good afternoon for you, Alec. Good morning for us. Over there across the pond. Good to have Alec with us today. By the way, I still think your running back ought to be in consideration for the MVP, but that's not going to happen. Good morning, Rick Sherlock out there in Amsterdam, Dave Guyette out there in Johnstown, and Ed in Columbus. That Buckeye himself joins us. Ohio State does have a quarterback in Will Howard, by the way. It is a good day for Ohio State. You're going to be very happy. I don't know how much you follow the Big 12, and we'll talk about this next Wednesday a lot, most likely, Ed. But Will Howard is a really good quarterback, and if you haven't seen him play at K-State, he's really good. He's a big kid, and I think you're going to love him out there. With that, let me bring in the Mad New Yorker and say good morning to him. Good morning, Carlos.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Hope you had a good holiday.
It was not too bad. As long as we got family, that's all that matters.
That's correct. So anyway, we got a lot to chat about today, so we'll jump right into it. Let's start out. I want to talk a little bit about the college football and your thoughts, our thoughts, see how they line up on the college football finals, whether you thought they were good games, bad games. We'll start there. We can talk about the opt-outs if you want, Jim Harbaugh's future, all of this, all tied in to the playoffs and the bowl games itself. What are your thoughts on the games that we watched last week? I enjoyed them. I thought they were both very enjoyable games.
They're both very dramatic. There's a lot of sloppiness, I guess.
Sloppy for sure. The Alabama-Michigan game was definitely sloppy, but it certainly, some of that sloppiness led to some of the drama that we had at the end. A great finish for J.J. McCarthy. That last drive, it was kind of his signature moment so far in his college career.
Yeah, because as much as people were saying that he might go in the first round, I don't think he's a first round pick. But I was like, this kid is not showing up for this game, and eventually it got down to nitty gritty, and they were close enough for him to step it up, and he did his job, and praise him for doing what he did. And I think this game helped Alabama more than it helped Michigan, in the sense where now as a recruiter, you can go in and be like, you see, like we're on national television. We still made a playoff. You could be the difference.
I don't think that there was a recruiting problem at Alabama before.
Well, in a sense where guys were leaving, like there was a lot of guys that left through the portal stuff. But, you know, it's kind of just sad for the SEC not to be representing in a championship game. But
sad, why? I mean, why can't we? Can other teams can participate? You know, the SEC is not. There's other football being played around the country that's really good.
Well, sad in a way because this year they actually were one of the toughest conferences. And then my argument was that I didn't even believe that Michigan was up to snuff, and they were able to compete and make it a game at the end of the end. They still won.
Their defense is really good. Jim Harbaugh is you can think whatever you want about Jim Harbaugh. He's a great coach, great players.
I don't have any ill thoughts about Harbaugh. And
I mean in general. I don't mean you. I meant people.
Conference-wise, it's just like the SEC did actually pretty well in the bowl games. The top tier teams. So compared to other conferences and their top tier teams. So yeah, I mean,
judged by that, you know, I got, and I'll touch on it. I'll pivot a little bit, and we'll go back to these semifinal games because there is more to talk about. But how much can you judge by how well a conference does in these bowl games when
half the kids are coming? That was another.
I mean, 80. First of all, there's so many games, right? 43 games, 86 teams. All but 8 of them had opt-outs of some kind, including the teams in the Final Four. And probably 20 of them had 15 or more players, a lot of them impact players that don't play. Some of them played, and kudos to the Bo Nixes of the world who, you know, didn't need to play by today's standard. Kudos to him and some other guys. But how much can you judge by who's better and who's not by these bowl games when nobody's at?
Yeah, and you know what? Kudos to Bo Nix. I think he raised his draft like
in my mind.
Just because he did play and he played well, like so, you know, good for him. Good for him. You know, plus it's the last game of your career. You know what I'm saying? Like, you might as well show up and show out. Like, you know, the kids that didn't play. I mean, you know, I've been saying this for a while. There should be a rule stating that if you don't play, then you should automatically be in the 3rd round of the NFL draft.
Here's what I say. The NFL's not really going to penalize these guys. I would rate guys lower that leave that run away from their teammates, that they let down their teammates, I should say, that they've gone to battle with all year. I would certainly hold that against the guy's character. My theory on the opt-outs is I don't care if you're transferring. I don't care if you're going to the NFL draft. If you do not complete your team season for anything other than injury or family emergency, then you pay the money back that I paid for your education that year. How about that?
Or NIL or whatever. That's
whatever. Pay the money back if you don't complete the season.
You're as a coach, like the way if you look at it coaching wise, there were other kids that you could have had given an opportunity towards the end of the season to play. And your starters are now saying when you're down to the last game, no, we're not going to play. And that changes a lot of what your game plan is. And not for nothing, but the Florida State situation, that changed.
It's a joke.
That didn't help them. I don't think they would have won that game anyway. It probably would have been more competitive though. And it looks bad on the team, and it looks bad on the coach, and it looks bad for the school.
I had this argument with guys last Sunday. I don't understand how the coach looks bad when guys let their team down by walking away before the season's over. That's not on the coach. That's on. They had 20-something scholarship players left for that game. That's it. And again, you're putting guys in there, and God bless those guys that went out there and got their asses kicked. Nothing else was going to happen. That was a foregone conclusion, and that is not in no way, shape, or form does it show that Florida State didn't belong in the playoff, because that result would not have happened if they were in a playoff.
Well, and too bad we can't see also that whole Florida State situation was if they went to one of these Final Four playoff teams, how many kids would have stayed to play that game?
They all would have stayed. The best guys would have played. Some guys will opt out. They always do. The guys in the Final Four, the guys that opted out there were guys that weren't going to play, weren't going to have an impact anyway. But
I mean,
again,
we don't know that. You're saying that it's coming out of your mouth into whoever's ears, but we don't really know that.
Well, I would hope that's true. If you're playing for a national championship, that you got some incentive to go out there and play. And if you don't, then you're showing a true lack of character in my mind. And I'm hoping with the 12-team playoff that more guys will stay in next year.
So there's another thing. Like, this shows a sense of responsibility, a sense of loyalty, a sense of there's just a lot of things that go behind you playing your last game as a senior in the bowl game. Because the reality is, even if you go into a draft, you're not guaranteed a position in the NFL. So, what do you if you're saying you're trying to keep yourself healthy, fine, great. But understand this: there's only a certain percentage of kids that are going to get drafted, and if you fall in the top 10%, there's only still like 2%, 3% that will actually get picked from the 10.
I agree.
Right?
Well, it's not just guys in the draft now; it's guys who transfer out are also
right. Well, that's different too. Like, if you transfer out, you're not eligible to play in the bowl game anyways.
Well, correct. Well, first of all, why is the transfer portal open before the season's over?
Because the
foolish.
Right. The time frame of the administration for the school is not set on the same time frame as football.
It's ridiculous. It should be in January after the games are over.
Yeah. And the universities can't show special treatment to student athletes, even though they do to a certain extent. But
I'll get to Rick's comment here in a second. Alec, your comment about the 49ers will hold till we jump into some NFL talk in just a little bit. But a couple good mornings to CA. Good morning to you. Good morning to Augustin. Good morning to Anthony. Good to have you with us here today. And good morning to Bob and Jeanette out there in Amsterdam, New York. My dad and stepmom.
Not Basement Bob.
Now, not to be confused with Basement Bob, who I was afraid I'd hear from this week because I talked a lot about the 16-team playoff this past Wednesday. So I could be hearing this from his lawyers again. I don't know. So we'll see.
Is he going to get a kickback from that anyways?
Yeah, he'll get a kickback. All right. Because I got he sold one book. So, Rick Sherlock. So we're still talking about the college playoff here. We'll get into a little bit more of the talk on the semifinals. I got a couple other thoughts, but he talked. And one thing I did want to get into is the Jim Harbaugh situation. Will he be back with a win or a loss? Where did he end up?
He already got a new agent, which is the same agent that a couple other coaches have in the NFL.
Right. And the word is he has a contract on the table, a contract extension from Michigan for 5 years, $11 million a year. He has not signed it, which tells me something. I think he's gone win or lose. I think this witch hunt is not over. As nonsensical as I still think it is, I'm not condoning cheating, but again, everybody's out there trying to get an edge, and I'll continue to say that.
Right.
And I think Harbaugh, and there was a report yesterday that the Chargers have already been talking to Jim Harbaugh's new agent. So I think he's in the NFL, Rick. And I now think, I said the Raiders originally. I think the Raiders might still be in play.
The Raiders.
With the Chargers.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Harbaugh's been, and his brother both been in the NFL. So they know who these owners are, and they know what they do. So that Chargers contract is going to be on the table for a pretty long time. They ain't that many coaches that are older that will take that job, to be honest with you. And because they know what's going on over there, and they know about the ownership over there. So the ownership needs to do other things than just get have a half lease and with another team, and they have to do a lot of other things than just buy players and try to have a good roster, because culture matters. Culture is a thing. Having high up administrative personnel is a thing, and the Chargers are like in between. They're in between in all those different sections that I'm talking about. So and I'm not trying to speak bad of the Chargers. I'm just saying the situation for them. If you're an employer, and I'm looking to look to see if that's somewhere I want to go, that they don't pop up on the first top of my list.
No, but Harbaugh's going to go where he thinks he can win, and he can make some money. You know what? Here's the thing. He's going to win wherever he goes because he's won everywhere he goes. Everywhere.
Right. That's what I was saying.
He won't win.
The thing is, let's just say if someone like Belichick tomorrow says he's done before this, and he goes, all right, do you think he's going to take the the Chargers job?
No, but I don't want to get into too many speculation things. I doubt Belichick will be back. By the way,
it's less likely for coaches with experience and who are on elder statesmen to take the San Diego.
They're going to look for a good situation with the organization as a whole. Yes, I don't disagree with that.
That's all I wanted to say.
To Anthony's point here, Anthony, no, the playoffs are not staged. So you're telling me they're only staged if Michigan wins, by the way. If they're staged, they're staged, whether they win or not. Then it would have been staged for the team that won, if your theory's correct. And your theories, Anthony, I love you. I love all your guys. Your opinions, I respect them. People who think the NFL or college football is scripted, it's not. If you think it is, well, you might as well watch wrestling. What's the point of watching? And the last team, I always got a kick out of this, that the NFL always wanted the Patriots to win. The last team they wanted to win was the Patriots. The last team the NCAA wants to win these playoffs is Michigan. They don't want them to win. Because now it's going to keep a spotlight on an ugly situation that they're going to have to address eventually, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, there's always some kind of question to like how these games are, how they end up. But the one thing that's kind of weird lately is that they've all been playing towards what Vegas has been throwing out there as far as number wise. So
yeah, Alec has a good point about this Charger situation being similar to the 49ers situation when he got there. That's a very good point. What's the Anthony got? If you think Jim goes to the Raiders, Mark Davis will give him full control of the team. Yeah. I think
not always a good thing.
No, it's not. I mean, Harbaugh will probably do better at that than a guy like Josh McDaniel. Let's put it that way, right? So I do think the Raiders are in play here. I do, but no quarterback there causes a big issue. So
I think the Antonio Pierce causes a big issue because he's
and again,
doing well.
I know we're going off on a tangent, but this is why you don't fire coaches in the middle of the season and put an interim in there, because if he does well, you almost have to keep him or you get chastised for it. And they did the same thing because now they've also got the Biasacci issue that they didn't retain him, and it didn't go well. So he did very well, obviously, with that team, got him into the playoff. Anthony must be hanging with Kenny at the top of the mountain. Probably is. Stop helping Kenny harvest the crops up there, Anthony. I think Jim only goes Anthony if he gets full control. Agreed. How do we know he was eating fish and drinking hot chocolate? He wasn't, probably. Right, and that's one of the reasons he left San Francisco. These guys want control. Anyway, back to the playoffs. And I want to make one more comment about the Michigan-Ohio State game. So a great drive by Michigan to tie that game in overtime. A lot made of the last call of the game. I don't have a problem with it because it was a bad snap. And Jim Jeffcoat pointed out when I was on with him the other night, the call was a counter and it was a perfect call. If he looked to his right, he'd have walked into the end zone. He went the wrong way.
I think not only did he go the wrong way, but Michigan's defense did what they were supposed to do.
Well, they did, but the hole was there. As good as the defense was, the offense did their job and opened a hole, and he missed it. Right? That being said, that stuff happens. My big problem with that last possession for Alabama was their plays on first and second down where they're running the ball up the gut. If I'm going to run the ball in that situation, those 4 downs, nobody's getting the ball in their hands except Milroe. And he's going to run it or he's going to throw it, and that's it. But they run the ball at the gut and lose 6 yards, which backed them up. He made a nice pass to the 4-yard line on third down, but it left them a bad situation there at the goal line, fourth and goal.
I don't understand. They had maybe 3 or 4 yards. Alabama did 3 or 4 downs. Like in the beginning of the fourth quarter, where they looked like they were just going to run away with the game just by running the ball and running the timeout. And I don't understand between that point of the fourth quarter towards the end of the fourth quarter, where the urgency, where the motivation, and where the will went for the team, because they were slamming the ball down Michigan's face, like they were, and Michigan couldn't stop them, and I'm like, so the all those stops, all those commercial breaks, all those things, and the fact that Michigan stepped up, all those mattered. And when Alabama made that last call, which, to be honest, was a good call, they just didn't run or play well, I don't think, myself. That was a determining factor. Like maybe they were already thinking they won the game and then make that last push.
By the way, these teams have got to teach kids to take the ball under center as well. So when a kid's having a problem, that poor center, I mean, he didn't do this all year long or he wouldn't have been playing. So he got the yips that day, which happens. And if you don't have a guy and most of college quarterbacks don't ever take a snap under center anymore. They're all taking a ball in the shotgun consistently. That's why you've got to teach these guys to do this so that when you need it, they could do it. And they couldn't go to that. People said, why didn't they just put them under center? Well, if you haven't taken a snap under center all year, that's going to be a problem as well. So,
yeah, I mean, anyway. There's a lot of little things that Saban teams usually do better. And it just goes to show the true freshmen, the true sophomore players on the team, how they're going to get experience from this, of course, but how they let this one go, a little bit on their way, because, these kids, they're kids. At the end of the day, they're, and this is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to learn and develop and get better. And this is unfortunate for Saban and this team. And kudos to you doing their job.
And all in all, I get on people about the SEC and whatever. It's a great league. Nick Saban is the greatest college football coach of all time, without a doubt, in my mind. And this is probably his best coaching job, because this was not, your normal Alabama
walk in the park. No, it was not. But
got better all year long.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I harked on, was that they just kept getting better and better. I'm like, it's going to be a hard team to beat, and I wasn't not liking Georgia, but I didn't think that Georgia was better either. So
CA saying that the refs manipulate for favorable outcomes because of television is no different than what Anthony said. You're telling me the games are scripted. Well, maybe not scripted, but they maneuver it, which again, it's scripted, but they're changing the script as it goes to make sure it comes along. I don't believe any of that. I seriously would not watch any sport I thought was already predetermined what the outcome was going to be. So I just can't buy that. Good morning, Ralph Williams. Good to have you with us again. I apologize for not making it on the show Tuesday night. Things just got away from me this week with a lot of stuff going on. So my apologies. I know I've done it several times, Ralph, but I apologize again. And I'd love to come on at another time. So semifinal number 2, Washington and Texas. Great game. Up and down the field, kind of what we thought. Washington's defense, as every game, is suspect, but they come up big in big moments. Yeah, my only gripe with and I loved Washington. I love Washington. They find ways to win. That's why I like them against Michigan. They find a way to win regardless. They win different ways, but offense or defense comes up big. My one gripe would be DeBoer and his game management, clock management wasn't great at the end of the game, and they gave the ball back to Texas with too much time.
Yes.
Which allowed for them to have one more big defensive stand, which they had inside the 10-yard line at the end of that game. So game was up in the air, both games up in the air until the last play of the game, which is what you want to see. Some sloppy football, absolutely. But you're going to get some of that in those games too. So any thoughts on predetermined shows are in WWE? That's what I say, Ralph, by the way. Thank you.
I mean,
no problem, Ralph.
Washington was my dark horse this season.
I had him in the playoff. I didn't win at all, but I've liked Washington since Georgia was eliminated.
Yeah, I had Washington as my dark horse since the beginning, and I had them playing Alabama in the championship, actually. But I was, I was impressed with them until towards the end of the game. They gave too much time up. You saw that the same thing happened with a couple of games in the Pac-12 where the third quarter they're good, the middle of the fourth quarter they already like try to pack it in, and you can't do that on any of these teams in the championship. They're playing for the championship because you never know. You got to play till the whistle blows, man. And
yeah,
but
and I think some of that is this coaching staff is DeBoer's first head coaching job, and he's still learning. It's second year, but he's learning on a job a little bit still. And that's part of the game that's hard is that game management, especially at the end, especially when you rely on a pass as much as Washington does.
Right.
You got to be able to run the ball to run that clock out, or run that clock down if not out. And I'd like to see them do that better. That being said, I still like them to beat Michigan for all the same reasons I've liked them to win up until now. This will be a lower scoring game, I think. Michigan will score some points. Michigan will run the ball probably really well. But Washington will come up with enough defensive stops that their offense will overcome.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great matchup. I think it's going to be I also picking Washington over Michigan. I feel like Washington has had more battles and have won bigger battles and are battle tested more than Michigan is. Their conference was tough this year, the Pac-12, and not to say that the other conferences weren't as tough, but this isn't this is not an Ohio State team that they're going to be playing. This isn't just one Marvin Harrison Jr. Like this is three Marvin Harrisons. You know what I'm saying? Like and Penix can throw the ball, man. So
what I do here? Let's move on. Let's move on to a different topic. Good stuff. I think the game Monday night will be a lot of fun, and we'll talk more about this, of course, on Sunday and next week on this show and the college football huddle on Wednesday. The NFL. I want to talk about who. Is it over? Is Lamar Jackson, which if you look at the betting sites, man, he's a huge favorite now to win the MVP. Everybody else from Brock Purdy to McCaffrey to whoever else are way down the tote board. Is he the MVP? And is there a great team? Is Baltimore a great team? Baltimore, I heard a stat, and I got a comment I got to put back up for you from Alec from earlier. Is Baltimore the best team in football? The 49ers the best team in football? And again, when I say best team, are they a great team as well? Baltimore has led in the last 2 minutes of every single game this year. Even the games they lost, they've led with 2 minutes left. So
yeah, I know.
That's an interesting stat to look at. You can look at it a couple ways, I guess. But
they're a great team for this season, right? Like this season's is on the low compared to other seasons with scoring in the NFL. I mentioned that. Even the great Tom Brady has mentioned it. You know, we've talked about over a cup of tea.
Tom Brady did rip the. You had a cup of tea with Tom, did you? I don't think he drinks it. It had to be non-caffeinated tea.
He drank his Tom Brady 12 juice. TB12.
TB12. Get the brand right. They pay us a lot of money on this show.
I'm sorry, yeah, it was a TB12, and he kind of took some of my ideas and just went with it. So he's looking to get more TV time on Fox and stuff like that. So I let him. I'm all right with that. But yeah. So scoring's low. Defenses are hurting. Offensive lines are hurting. To be honest with you, right now, I think he's putting himself out there as a number one candidate, just as Mr. Myles Garrett and also what's his name from the Pittsburgh Steelers, Watt. Mr.
Watt, yeah, but they're not going to win. So I think Garrett would have to be above Watt now, and I liked Watt earlier.
What I want to say is that you have to be the most valuable player on your team and help your team be winning. So I feel as if Lamar Jackson wasn't on the Baltimore Ravens would not be winning as many games. So he's doing exactly what a quarterback should do and be able to take, like I usually say, like a great quarterback, and even the ones that are the best can win you 6 to 7 games a season on their own, like doing what they do to the best of their ability. So he's doing that. Same thing. Myles Garrett, if he wasn't on the Browns, they would have a good defense, but I don't think they would be able to win games.
I think Myles Garrett should get MVP consideration. He should get votes. I don't see him on the leaderboard here at all in the odds making, but he should. And right now, Jackson, Prescott, and Purdy.
Yeah,
and
all quarterbacks. And like
Miles.
Of the sad part is that if you took out Prescott from the Cowboys, they wouldn't be the same team. But again, they're an unbalanced team anyways. They got too many inconsistencies.
That's what the award is, though. Most valuable, right? It's not the numbers. It's if you took that player away, how would the team fare?
Right. So, and the same thing.
Not fare well. Cowboys fare well.
Purdy, you see every time he's not out, I give him a little bit of an edge over Donald, but like there's still 9 players on that team that are going to a Pro Bowl.
Well, there you go. Mad New Yorker, just since you brought that up, Alec wanted the Mad New Yorker to know that Kyle Shanahan has 9 players in the Pro Bowl and the number 1 seed, greatest coach in the NFL right now, which I know you'll disagree with. My question, I think the 49ers are the best team in the league, regardless of that outcome of the Baltimore game weeks ago.
I believe that the 49ers are the best team in the league because they play in the NFC. If we ever switched it over, I don't think it would have been the same argument. I think the argument would change if you put them in the AFC, to be honest with you.
Why? Because there's so many great teams in the AFC?
No, because
one good team in the AFC. In my mind, the Dolphins go to Baltimore and get totally embarrassed. They get embarrassed by Buffalo earlier in the year.
The competition, it might not. I believe that the AFC teams in the West are more competitive. I'm talking about in their region, first and foremost. Competitive in their region. If the 49ers were in the AFC West, they wouldn't win that division. They'd lose at least 2 or 3 games.
I don't disagree because I still think the Chiefs will go to the Super Bowl, by the way.
Right. Yeah, I think the Chiefs are headed on that way too because all it takes is one injury for the 49ers to be out of contention. So they might be the best coach and they might have the best players, but they're not the best team. And in that retrospect, because
you can't deny Kyle Shanahan is one of the best coaches then, based on their record.
Yeah, but he also has a record of being like winless after being down by 14 in the fourth quarter on his whole career. So
we got some comments here too. I want to get to.
It's not that I don't It's not that I don't like him. It's just that there is a book on all these teams on how to play each other, and the book's out on him. And if you control the game, you can beat San Francisco 49ers. The Ravens proved that. And they went what? Didn't they lose 3 in a row this season because of injury?
Yes. Yeah, they did. And again, they had guys out. So, when everybody's healthy, I think they're a great team. I agree with Ralph that I think Baltimore's good, not great.
Yeah, I don't again.
If you shut Lamar Jackson down, you shut that team down.
Right. Again, so that's what I said. For this season, for the football that we're getting, these are the top 2 teams, and they're really good. I can't say great because I don't feel like I've seen great football from either of the team.
I won't disagree with that. I mean, again, I don't think there's a great team.
Yeah. Okay. How about that? Let's both say that there's not a great team this year.
Right. So I'll back up. I'll back up a little bit because I did a minute ago say I thought the 49ers were great. I will say I think the 49ers are the best team in football right now with everything clicking. I think they're better than Baltimore when everything's clicking. They had an off day that day. Purdy didn't play well.
That's the point. That was the point. The Ravens put enough pressure on Purdy, and the defense did enough to stop to control McCarthy, whatever his name is. I can't remember. I'm sorry.
That's funny. We get back-to-back comments where one says they're good and the other says, Alec, who's a 49er fan, says the Ravens are the best team in football for sure.
Oh, okay. No, well, they did enough to stop McCaffrey. And, for now, the best, you might think it's the 49ers. I might think it's the Ravens, but that doesn't mean that they're great teams. How about that?
It's a time for Cincinnati to rebuild. I mean, I think they've
been rebuilding for the last 3 years.
I don't think there's any need to You lost your quarterback for nearly half the season, and
Burrow is injury prone. Why'd you give him a huge contract?
Because he's the best quarterback in football when he's healthy.
He's one of the good quarterbacks when he's healthy. Yes, not one of the best and the greatest of all time.
No, I don't agree with any of that, CA. I'm never going to agree with that. I mean, you guys can have your opinions about this is about games being scripted and whatnot. No, I don't think that. I mean, you think because New Orleans got to the Super Bowl that year, it's all scripted because of Eric. I mean,
yeah, Ralph, I'm thinking what you're thinking, but
TJ Watt. Listen, Ralph, I agreed with this up until a few weeks ago. When Pittsburgh was really rolling, TJ, and that defense was the reason for it. And by the way, I know Ralph is tough on some of the coaches up there. I don't know where he stands today on Mike Tomlin. I think Mike Tomlin's a really good coach. To keep that team in contention, you have to be. And TJ Watt's most responsible for that. Maybe if they make the playoffs, I change my mind. But if it's a defensive player right now, I'd have to go for Garrett over Watt just because of the records.
Well, I think, but the records, the thing with Garrett is that he's surrounded by a great secondary, a good secondary that he helps them better and they help him be better. So with TJ Watt, it's like if he's not in the game because of injury, their defense is not the same at all. Like, and they're more likely to lose that game.
I do think TJ should also get some votes. Yeah, I don't think
that to me, that's what an MVP is. The fact that they keep pushing these quarterbacks up, saying that they're MVPs, they should be MVPs. You're paying them like MVPs. They should get an award for that.
Well, again, if it's about the player you can least afford to lose, the player the Pittsburgh can least afford to lose is TJ Watt. The player the Browns can least afford to lose is Myles Garrett, in my mind.
Right.
So they do warrant consideration for the MVP for sure. Yeah, we don't do that because we care about quarterbacks.
I listen, and I mean, at the end of the day, each position player, they have awards as well too. So By the way, we saw what happened with Ravens. I memean, again, we can say we want about Lamar Jackson, but we saw what the record was last year without him. Right. Exactly. Yes. So he is a very valuable player. He just gets another guy. He needs to show me he can win some big games in January because he hasn't done it yet. You know what? I commend Lamar Jackson for stepping out of the game, semi-injured last year, not playing, and then stepping up this year and playing out of his mind. Because if it had happened the other way around, and people still get on him for being, Lamar Jackson, but if it had happened the other way around, oh boy, the amount of media and the scrutiny that this kid would have gotten would have been ridiculous. Yeah. Anthony thinks Baker, I'm assuming he means Baker Mayfield should be comeback player of the year. I think he will certainly be given consideration. He's had a pretty good year in Tampa. That South is so bad. That NFC South is so bad. The Falcons still have a chance to make the playoffs, for crying out loud. I had put down as a black horse to make the playoffs the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you well, if they win, they're in, aren't they? And I was like, they have Baker, and Baker's playing for his career. He does not want to be a backup quarterback. He does not. So this is his opportunity to show out. And kudos to Baker Mayfield for doing what he has been having to do, and with the team like the Tampa Bay Bucks. And for like everybody says, a win is a win, and he's been balling and getting them wins for them. So. Paul, you got to give him kudos, man. You got to give him his props. Paul Peters, by the way, you can stop commenting because your comments are not going to go up. I don't know why. If you think I look like a giant penis, that's awesome, but we're not going to put your comments up. Is that on YouTube? Man, no, it's from Facebook. It's from Facebook. We'll take care of him later. Guys, I don't get offended. I'm not offended, and I'm not putting your comments up because I get offended, but, we're not here to you want to come on and do a show, and I'll put you on and see what you look like, Paul, and we'll have some fun with you too. Just grow up a little bit, dude. Anyway. Where was I? I like that. I like that comment. Standard of play is down, and this is what we talked about all year long. The standard of play is way down. The good teams are good, but I mean, there are so many bad teams. It's like I've been saying unwatchable stuff. People, I've been on air saying it for almost 3 years now. Paul Peters is a character. Ralph predicted at the beginning of the season that the Steelers were either going 11-6 or 10-7. They're going to come a little short of that. And it's a quarterback situation there. I mean, they need a quarterback, and they weren't able to run the ball. The offense has been rough, man. That's why I think Tomlin's done a great job there. Yeah, it's it's kind of a strange situation there in Pittsburgh, but. Well, he may go too. I mean, I might walk away and be like, I'll go somewhere else. Like Ralph can probably comment on this better than I can, but there's been a lot of chatter that I've heard that he won't be fired. But if he wanted to go somewhere, Washington,
Carolina. I don't know why anybody would want to go to Carolina with that situation, but he wants to get nearer to where his daughter's going to school, I've read. If he wanted to go there, they would facilitate a way for him to get there if he wanted to go.
And I respect that. He's earned every bit of anything that he gets, like at the high end. As much stuff has been said about him in Pittsburgh in the first 2 or 3 years. You guys routed him bad. Like you guys,
yeah.
They were like, oh, we want what's his name back, and we want this and that, and oh my god, it was terrible. But he made it work. He kept cool, calm, and he's good.
Thank you, Ralph. That's okay. They are what they are.
Hey, what's wrong with the Eagles?
By the way, Paul, just again, I can't let this Paul thing go. I'm guessing that Paul Peters is probably a good friend of Basement Bob, and he's upset about
maybe it is Basement Bob.
And he's living in his mom's basement, and he's got nothing better to do than come on and make obnoxious comments. So live shows attract some weirdos. Yeah, that's for sure. I got the Mad New Yorker here every week with me, for crying out loud. Bills could be the number 2 seeder out of the playoffs.
I like that. That's like the most randomness type of situation to be in. That's like the Giants when they didn't. That 1 year they didn't make the playoffs with the 9 wins.
Yeah, I don't. I think it's gonna be a great game. So anyway, MVP Lamar Jackson, easy. Unfortunately for you guys who don't think so. I think that's where we're going. Let's move on to our next topic. The Knicks.
Oh, Lord.
Are the Knicks better for the Anunoby trade? Which I think, listen, I love the RJ Barrett, and I kept arguing, don't trade him, don't trade him, don't trade him. This is one guy I would have traded him for because he gives me back everything that RJ does.
Yeah.
He shoots a 3 better, and he's a lockdown defender besides, and that's what the Knicks really needed. Quickly going in this trade, they weren't going to pay him starter money next year, so he was going to be gone either way. I think it's a good trade for the Knicks. Plus, the other 2 guys will be guys that can be contributors off the bench, I think, too.
I think it's an okay trade. I think this is just a reaction to what the leadership is right now. Like Tibbs is going to do what he needs to do, and he's not going to like change and have the player use his player's potential to the best of their abilities. That you just have to understand about Tibbs. Tibbs will play guys for 40 minutes and say, just play ball and do what I tell you to do. And no, let me finish. And so Barrett doesn't fit that structure. He's not that kind of player. And the Knicks, as far as their current management team is now, coaching wise, they're not developing players. They have young players that need to be developed, but they're just letting them play. And Tibbs was going against that for the 2 seasons in a row where he didn't allow these other players on the bench to come out and even get minutes because he's so structured and fitted on what he wants to do. He's just that's him, and that's okay. But that is what you get now. The return is like you got to get rid of players that maybe need a little bit more like development, need more time to play, need a little bit more, and it's not available here for the Knicks. Now they have a good young core still. The injuries are hurting them a little bit. They lost a second point guard to come off the bench, so they no longer have that. So they need to find another player in that route. I don't know if they're going to go to the draft and do that. And it was more of a money situation. Now, Anunoby, I like him. I like that trade because it's almost like you get 1 for 1, but you get one who plays more defense. So that was kind of like good. And they got him, even though they were trying to get him last year, but they weren't willing to spend draft picks to get him, which is good. So they in that route they did good money wise. But in no case is this basketball moves because it doesn't make the Knicks better because they still need 3 or 4 more players. They're still short four players that with experience or that would.
They need bench guys. That's it. And you say this all the time about Tibbs. And does he overwork Randall too much during the regular season and he beat up in the play? Hold on. Yes, but it isn't like he doesn't play. He's going 10 deep on guys playing 20 minutes a game.
It took him 2 seasons. It took him 2 seasons. I wouldn't be doing that the first. You got to play who you got. If they're on your bench, you play them. If not, get them off your bench.
If they can't play, you don't play them. Nobody plays.
Because
I can't find 5 other teams playing 10 guys playing 20 minutes a game.
No, and then the only team doing that right now is Detroit, and they're trying to formulate some kind of plan, and
because they lost 26 games in a row.
Yeah, well, they finally won one.
Oh God, maybe
That's what happens when you. This is a problem that a lot of fans and some people in the media tend to forget. When you contract a player, you have to play them in their position as a starter if you're paying them starter money. You cannot not sit them down or put him or have them have a week off because
how did teams 30 years ago, 40 years ago play 7-man rotations and guys played 40 plus minutes a game every
the contracts had a little bit of leeway. The contracts were different. The underwriting was different.
What's that got to do with guys playing too many minutes?
It's the same idea that DeVito just got benched for Tyrod Taylor because they're paying Tyrod Taylor to be on the field and they're not paying DeVito.
That makes zero sense. Makes zero sense.
If your guy is contracted, he has to play.
I'm talking about the situation with guys playing a lot of minutes in the NBA when 40 years ago they were able to play 48 minutes. Some guys played every minute of every game.
Yeah, but the difference is that the speed of the game is also it's first of all, it's a totally new generation. It's different. Basketball is different. And if you can't accept that, then you have to watch a different.
No, I understand that. It was more of a half-court game and walk the ball up the floor. I get that.
Yeah, so it was like so.
But the game was also a lot more physical back then as well.
Yeah, so now it's more. Even though they're playing more minutes, they're more tired stamina-wise than they are physically tired because they're not taking the bumps, the bruises, they're not falling hard, they're not doing all that stuff. So it's a totally different game. But I mean, that being said, you can't have a game plan where you're ostracizing players who you're supposed to be using.
No, if they can't play, I mean,
don't put them on your roster. You can't get that easy.
The Knicks in the 70s had guys who wouldn't play average.
The Knicks have messed up so many contracts since before Carmelo that they always have to find a way to get rid of their players or move players and more. They have more issues business wise, and that affects the basketball.
All right,
way too much.
Back to this topic of are the Knicks better with Anunoby? I think they are. They're the 4th best team in the East still, which they were before the trade, in my mind. Not in the standings right now, but when it's over, I think that's where they'll be, just like last year. And I do think this trade helps them come playoff time. They do need more bodies to give Randall, because the only guy right now who can back him up is Anunoby. So they do need another big body off the bench. And Harden got to keep playing like he played the last night. Was last night? 20 rebounds. You got a big game against the Sixers tonight. So
tonight's a big game with the Sixers. I mean, they're going to be – I like that. Like with Brunson, it makes them competitive. But, we're still short players, and we're going to be in 4th for a long – it's going to be 3 or 4 more seasons of this. Because the Knicks don't draft well at all either. They're talking about they got draft picks and stuff, but they don't do that well either. They haven't drafted well since the late 70s and 80s.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say late 70s. I think Patrick Ewing was a pretty good draft pick.
Yeah, in 81?
83? 83, I think.
Well, yeah, 83. My bad. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about another player, but...
Let's go to a topic that's near and dear to your heart. If you don't know, Jimmy Kimmel and Rodgers are back at it. And this started, I don't know, a couple years ago when Kimmel was taking shots at Rodgers about, and again, listen, to me, I'm not a big Jimmy Kimmel fan. I don't agree with his politics. I don't agree with a lot of things, but he's a comedian. He makes jokes about people. The jokes he made about Rodgers were actually, in fact, based in fact. It was about his lack of being transparent about his vaccination status, and not the fact that he didn't get vaccinated, the fact that he was being vague about what he did, and he's putting his own teammates at risk potentially. So by not being upfront, and Jimmy Kimmel made some jokes about that. That's what started his whole thing off. And now they've been going back and forth. And I think Rodgers makes a totally irresponsible comment on Pat McAfee's show the other day about when the Epstein files or documents are released, Jimmy Kimmel's going to be really scared to read that document because implying his name will be listed there. That's a totally irresponsible thing to say. Aaron Rodgers thinks he can do and say whatever he wants. And I think, well, ESPN I know is not happy because ESPN is owned by Disney. Kimmel's on ABC, which is owned by Disney.
Right.
I know they're not happy. I can't believe the Jets would be happy about this. Why do the Jets keep letting him go on that show? They pay him enough money. He doesn't need the $1 million that Pat McAfee's paying him to come on that show every week to be, just talk about crap off the wall. He thinks he lives in his own little world. And this is the reasons people like me don't like Aaron Rodgers.
And, well,
totally irresponsible thing to say.
Here's the thing. Of all the things that Aaron Rodgers says, how much of it is based on fact, true, and reliable information? I mean, he's not like,
It's not reliable information. It's just it's his guess to knock Jimmy Kimmel, and that's not the area that you want to do it in. There's ways to do it.
There are ways to do it, but I think it's funny. It's wrong, but it's funny because
it's not funny when we're talking about underage kids. Sorry, I mean, and I'm not offended, and I think everything's funny.
Well, that's not funny. What's funny is what he did and how he did it, not what he's talking about. And what's to me, what's like ironic is that somebody can talk about your health and what you're doing for your own health and then making a joke about it. But if somebody talks about you and in inappropriate matters,
listen,
like at the end, it should be a even wash, but you're taking him more you're making it sound like he's Dan Rather and he's reporting like out of the freaking Gaza Strip or something. I
made who sound like Dan Rather?
Like you making Rodgers look like as if
I said he's like he's like irresponsible comment.
Yeah, it's just a snide comment. It was rude. It was ridiculous.
Irresponsible.
It was irresponsible, but at the end of the day, the guy.
And I hope he gets his ass sued for it. I really do.
I just,
And I hate believe me, I hate defending Jimmy Kimmel because the guy makes me want to barf most of the time. But
it's much ado about nothing, and it just keeps put up in the media. And let them squabble.
This is Roger. This is Alex's point that Rodgers finds a way to stay in the news. He's the only guy ever on the IR to always be in the news. The Jets won't the Jets get tired of it?
Terrell Owens did a pretty good job himself back in the day.
Well, that's a good point. Terrell was pretty good at that too. But I don't think he ever accused a guy of going to an island and having sex with underage girls.
Okay, so he didn't say all that. He said that he'd be on the list. That list can mean anything.
What does the list imply? Please.
It can imply anything. It can be he could have got massages like the owner of the Patriots.
Why do you think this list is in the news? Why do you think this list is big news? Why?
Because it's two people.
It's salacious and it's about underage kids.
It's two people. And look, not for nothing, but you can't wrong Rodgers. That's perfect time. He used a perfect situation and perfect time.
Again, that is not the topic.
It's inappropriate, but it was funny.
He lumped him in with people that are going to be.
There's people from the left, far left, and the far right that are lumping groups of people in this list, and they're probably not even on the list.
The list itself is a joke anyway, because anybody who Epstein ever talked to is listed in the freaking documents. It's such nonsense.
Because the thing is, here's a problem too. Because even if you're let's say you go to a party, you're invited to this party, and it's a regular party, but you don't know what's going on at the other pool house or in the pool house. You don't know what's going on in the pool house because you're at the party having fun, and you're not in that pool house or what's going on. You're gonna be treated like the other people who got caught doing stuff in the pool house.
I just realized I lost the R. What is an Odger?
He's a Dodger.
Odger. Anyway, that's the point. You see, he knows. I look at this story and I read the report and I say, well, these people are just new Jeffrey Epstein. So what's the big deal about most of them? Right. Some of them are going to be scumbags, and we know that. Not all of them, but by making the comment, you're implying he's one of the scumbags, and that's the problem for me.
I have a good example.
anything other than that.
I have family members that were in the Studio 54 because they could get in and they have, but that don't mean that they were on any Studio 54 after 3:00 in the evening or in the morning. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
well, it's a little different than, again.
You know what I'm saying? Like, no, but people imply that you were in the Studio 54, that you was, doing stuff.
No, but if this was a different time and Rodgers said, well, Jimmy Kimmel's hanging out at Studio 54 doing coke all night off of strippers' bellies, that wouldn't be the same thing as what he did here. This is a much more salacious story than anything else he could have implied Jimmy Kimmel did. Anything.
But again, he went. It was Kimmel who's talking about his health and there's laws about you talking about what people do.
But that was based in fact. There's nothing tying Jimmy Kimmel to Jeffrey Epstein except Aaron Rodgers talking about it. That's it.
The timing of it was that Wednesday. The timing of it was, come on, like that was.
I think when it comes to vaccines, I think everybody ought to be able to do what they want to do. But Rodgers should have been honest. I said then, I ripped him then, and I will rip him now. Yeah, he wasn't honest, and he put his teammates at risk because of it.
Yeah, when we talked about it, because we did talk about it, we didn't mention it. He could, and that was my stance was then he could do whatever he'd like to do, and he could say whatever he wants to do because he has a law protecting him about what can be shared and what at that moment about his health. He don't have to say anything. He should have just shut his mouth, but
he should have said nothing and not said things that implied that he was vaccinated.
Yeah, but
so he did.
Point, him saying this, having to said this joke, offending Kimmel enough to respond with maybe legal action towards Rodgers, and then like the Jets having to be like, well, we're not responsible for what he says.
Well, they're not.
Then they're not, and then like all this.
And neither's Pat McAfee, although he wants them to say things like that.
Right, McAfee's okay with it because it brings ratings to him too. So like, but I'm not sure if he's okay with because he came out and said he's not okay with the fact that Aaron Rodgers said that about Kimmel being on the list.
No, I know, but he didn't say it on the air. That right to Aaron Rodgers' face.
Right. I mean, I just look. We're in a time where accessibility and is everywhere. And we have to be careful how we say things and when we say things and implying things. And I mean, but then how, to what point, till we get sued? You know what I'm saying?
I think Alec puts a good stamp on this life lesson. Never go on a private plane. I think that's a great lesson to learn here.
They're more affordable than ever. Well, if you have them,
I'll get on my own private plane. I'm not getting on somebody else's because I may end up on some island with shit going on that I don't want to be going on, as you talked about.
You can end up in New York City on an island.
End up in New York City. That's an island, correct.
LaGuardia, we got two airports. We got LaGuardia and JFK.
A lot of stuff going on there I don't want to be involved in. I can tell you that.
But look, I mean, this, we live in a world right now where you have to take responsibility for your own life and you have to understand the consequences from the actions that you take. That's one thing that has bothered me. Like, and I grew up in a time where, like, you made a mistake, there's consequences. Like, and they meant a lot.
Well, there are nobody's responsible for anything now. There's no accountability for anything you do today.
That's a very important word that, like, we in this time are like, we don't see as much. And when we do see it, sometimes it's too late. It's like people came back on you and said, hey, you got to take responsibility for that and be accountable for that. Let me go back and try to be accountable. Like, it's tough. It's a tough time. I say things all the time. I say a lot of things most of the time, but I'm okay with the consequences from them.
I am too. I mean, listen, I offend a lot of people, and I don't mean to offend people. I'll say what's up.
We grew up in a time frame where being offensive was okay as long as the other person wasn't going to turn around and sue you.
Yeah, and again, I don't get offended by most things, except people get offended by everything. But the problem is I will never go and make up something about Aaron Rodgers. Everything I ever ripped Aaron Rodgers about is based in fact.
Yeah, we'll leave that. That's a discussion for another day.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. The Jets, I'm sure, are going to want to rein him in. Anyway, Carlos, great job today. Good to see you. Good show for the new year. Guys, thanks for joining us. Big crowd today. Whatever your name was, dumbass. Please lose my address.
Condolences.
Have a great
to you and your family, sir. My condolences. Happy
Yes,
New Year.
thank
Good
you.
luck with everything. Good luck, people. Happy Fridays.
Have a great day, guys.